Alright, so normally I try to script out my thoughts and arguments into a rehearsed and proofread essay, but today I'm doing something a little different because something came up, and if I don't get it off my chest, then it's going to build up an unhealthy amount over a very short amount of time. So maybe I'll proofread some of this later, but for now, here goes. Recently there was a post by Pink News in which a woman who openly identifies as asexual decided to wear some pretty sexually charged lingerie, and it got published along with a caption, "This is what an asexual looks like." Now, I thought the point of that publication was pretty freaking obvious. The point was to challenge stereotypes that people have about asexual people, particularly the stereotype that if you are asexual, you have to be averse to any kind of sexual anything, I guess. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar, asexuality is a sexual orientation wherein that person just doesn't experience sexual attraction to anyone, or to very, very few people. And a lot of people kind of intuit that this must mean that if you are not sexually attracted to anyone, then you must also not experience sexual arousal, dislike any and all sexuality just generally, or never want to have sex, or find sexuality itself gross, or disgusting, or unpleasant. And this is very much not the case because asexuality, much like any sexual orientation category, actually covers a wide range of different experiences, and there's a whole spectrum of reactions that asexual people can have to sex itself. The opposite of asexual, by the way, is allosexual, and I'll be using that term because it is relevant here. There are lots of asexual people who do in fact enjoy having sex, provided they are comfortable with their sexual partner and trust them in that capacity. Much like how an allosexual person might feel attraction to someone, but not feel comfortable having sex, not even to someone they're attracted to, until they build that trust. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people seem to struggle with or get hung up on. You don't actually need to be sexually attracted to a partner, at least not physically sexually attracted to them, in order to get around or enjoy sex. For example, most of us are not sexually attracted to our own hands, and yet most of us are able to masturbate just fine, and most of us even enjoy it. There's a whole wide range of ways in which people can experience being asexual. This can range from being completely averse to sex in all its forms and never wanting to be exposed to nor participating in it, or it can go all the way to, yeah, it's fun, just like getting a back rub or a massage is fun or enjoyable, but the masseuse doesn't have to turn me on in order for me to enjoy it. Now, the failure to understand asexuality is basically forgivable. We were all ignorant of asexuality at some point because we do not, in fact, live in a culture that readily acknowledges asexuality the way it does heterosexuality. But what really pisses me off is the response to this photograph that was published and to the subject's release of a line of lingerie. A lot of allosexual people engaging in identity policing, gaslighting, and straight up talking over asexual people's experiences. A bunch of people, and almost all of them happen to be transphobes, that's how this all found its way onto my radar in the first place, felt that it was their place to tell asexual people what asexuality should look like and how asexual people should express themselves and find empowerment. This is fundamentally the logical conclusion of their mindset, which is that sexual orientation labels are somehow not voluntary self-assessment or self-description, but some series of rules, written or enforced by whom, I will never know, about who is supposed to call themselves what and why. I believe that any honest attempt at self-description using a sexual orientation label is perfectly fine and valid, even if you are working with incomplete information or you are still unpacking internal biases and attachments, or dealing with heteronormative society's conditioning around labels. Whatever answer you come to when it comes to what label fits you best, that is your decision to make, and nobody should ever take it away from you. Ever. These TERFs and exclusionaries seem to believe that the only people who should ever be allowed to call themselves asexual are people who never in their lives have ever experienced anything that might even possibly be sexual attraction, or even just sexual arousal. They will use whatever they think they can interpret as proof or disproof of the legitimacy of your self-description. One of the more common frustrations among asexual people is that they can't even make sex jokes around certain people. Why? Because it will be treated as evidence that their asexuality is delusion, or them misunderstanding themselves. I thought you were asexual, as is so often heard. So why do you feel comfortable making jokes about sex? To date, the best reply I've ever heard someone say to that was that sex is a joke to them entirely, so why the hell not? But the thing is, identity policing doesn't begin and end at annoyances, nor are people second-guessing your knowledge about your own damn self, nor how you feel about other people generally. As some of you may know, bigotry against asexual people used to be a very weak spot in my armor, until enough TERFs found it that I had to reinforce that part of my mental defenses if I wanted to keep fighting with them and keep countering their bigotry. Part of the reason is that bigotry against asexual people is so bizarre and illogical to me. There's no logical way to construct asexuality as a threat to anyone else's sexual dignity, the way homophobes try to convince us that gay men were coming for your little boys and lesbians were coming for your little girls. All bigotry is fundamentally irrational, but with asexual phobia, there never seemed to be any thread of logical justification the way most other bigotries are able to spin something ridiculous up. And yet, that antagonism persists, and it manifests in some pretty messed up ways. When I was in college, I became best friends with a fellow member of my university's LGBT organization. Cisgender dude, still identifies as such. Romantic asexual, and he was starting to think that he might be demisexual, or might be gray asexual, a term for someone whose attractions are usually very low. They can still feel worth acknowledging in one's label, but not frequent or strong enough that the person feels comfortable calling themselves allosexual. He decided to sexually experiment with some guys he felt comfortable with and trusted on that level. But one of those guys decided that this was actually evidence that his asexuality was merely a delusion, that it was all fake, and he just needed to be broken out of it. And after about 2 years of getting my friend to trust him, participating in my friend experimenting with outercourse, this person got my friend drunk and assaulted him. His primary motive wasn't even his own sexual selfish desire, but wanting to disprove my friend's asexuality. He truly thought that this asexuality was a mislabeling of sexual hangups, and all he needed to do was to break down those barriers with a sexual experience, and it would fix my friend's asexuality. But that's not what actually happened. I remember seeing my friend the next day, the look in his eyes, the emptiness of shock. That is scarred into my mind forever. And here I am, 10 years later watching exclusionaries and transphobes respond to an asexual person proudly wearing sexual attire, and they're questioning whether or not her asexuality is legitimate. I've seen where this leads, and I'm not having it. To all the allosexual people thinking that you should get a say in on who gets to call themselves asexual or not, shut the fuck up. Nobody asked for your opinion, and even if somebody did, yours would be worthless. Anyone who self-assesses themselves to be asexual is asexual in my book, and should be in yours too. I don't care if they are complete and utter horn dog. Being asexual doesn't obligate someone to any kind of behavior in order for their asexuality to be real and meaningful. Being asexual doesn't obligate anyone to any kind of behavior in order for their asexuality to be real and meaningful. It's not a vow of celibacy. Asexual people can still have sex if they damn well want to, can still wear sexy clothes if they damn well want to, and they're still asexual. And if you don't understand how someone can be a proud slut despite not experiencing sexual attraction to anyone, I don't care. You don't need to understand how anyone else feels to understand respect for other people's ways. And you will never understand their feelings better than they, the person experiencing those damn feelings. Crit out.